So the question I had is actually for you, Mike, because for the other ones on the call and people at home, they don't know Mike's background. You were on your way to being a pastor, Lutheran, if I'm not mistaken. So this question, this person wrote in, maybe I read it or something. It says, as a former pastor on my journey from faith to atheism, I'm feeling lost and alone along the way. And I thought, Mike, you probably can speak to that.
Absolutely. And I empathize with that person because it is a painful, it's a painful journey to go through. And so I could cut right to the chase because now my hindsight is 2020. I could cut right to the very end and give a real short response to that. But I think it's important to acknowledge that pain that that person is going through, because what they're experiencing is a huge, I know for myself, I was experiencing a huge loss because now I was no longer like everyone else. I felt other, I felt other than, I felt very different. And we all want to be part of that in group. That's just a natural part of human psychology.
Right.
So when you're going through that, there's that losing that personal connection. And then there's the connection to the divine. And there was a moment when it kind of hit me like a bolt from the blue that, hey, I don't have to be sad about losing something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I heard myself saying all the time, well, God wants this and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, this and that, and all of that, as I was going through my deconstruction. And then when I realized those aren't really things, those aren't things. There's Thor isn't real.
Right. Yeah.
A chariot pulling the sun through the sky is not real. I had to give up the absurdity, and I had to give up the magical thinking. And I know that viewers here will hear me say that a lot. Get rid of the absurdity and get rid of the magical thinking. But that was so powerful for me.
Yeah.
And let's also consider that what Christianity suggests is that we put a huge amount of stock, we put our entire salvation upon the writings of a bunch of Bronze Age people who didn't know where the sun went at night. And that's not okay, because humanity has understanding. And we know we don't need to invoke the God of the gaps. When we're at the limit of our understanding, it isn't necessary to say, well, that must be where God resides. That must, we are continually pushing the veil of our understanding back farther and farther and farther. And this whole entire amazing, wonderful universe is right here in front of us. And I mean, I can look up at the night sky and just get to tears. I can look at a tree. And just almost come to tears because of how wonderful and real it is. So if a person is going through that deconstruction, I get it. And
you'll have to give up.
Yeah, initially. You don't have to give. You just will take time to talk to other folks who love you and care about you. And a great place to start is right here in this forum that you've created, Mike. This is an excellent place for it. We're going to listen to you,
Yeah.
Shoot me a message.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shoot any of us a message.
Any of us
would love to hear from you.
That's the reason we started doing this. And Cynthia, you and I both know someone, you know them better than I do. We won't say their name, but the gentleman that's in your Black non-believers group that was a Pentecostal preacher, had his own church, and at some point raised his kids as homeschooled because of that whole thing. His wife was, the equivalent of every other pastor's wife. They're always elevated above everybody. And he's like, at some point, yeah, I don't believe any of this. And, then he's like, do I keep going on this? Or, because that's his whole life. And hopefully it didn't work out well as a term because he'd lost his wife, he didn't lose
Yeah.
his kids. In fact, one of his kids, I remember him telling me that one of his kids, like, yeah, we never believed it either, but I had to kind of go along because you're dad.
Right,
know?
right, exactly.
But
Yeah.
it was actually a really interesting conversation. I'd like to have him on the show. He and I we don't know each other well enough, but if you can influence that, because I would
No,
love to
I'm
see
going
more
to,
about
I'm going to, I think he would probably be up to it, but I had to, like, you know, push him a little bit more. But no,
that. Yeah,
his
he's kind of
story,
reserved.
yeah, he's a pretty reserved guy, but like he's pretty. I mean, but like as you can tell, like he has no problem talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but like, yeah, I think it's just like so fascinating to have a person that was in that life for so long, right? Who was
Yeah.
a part of the clergy, who raised their kids and also chosen their spouse based on their beliefs,
The
right?
whole thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then, you know, you as you go along with it, and then you actually like look at the Bible again, and then like really try to reconcile some of the things that you read to the point where like, wow, this just makes no sense, right?
Right.
And then to the point like you go to your spouse and like, you know what? I don't believe in this stuff anymore. And,
Right.
and then it's like, what do you do with that, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
Mike, I wish he was at the debate that we were able to host, like, you know, last month, right?
Mhm.
And I remember the person who debated our member, their wife was there. He's a pastor. Their wife was there, and then
Mhm.
so I and his wife had, you know, it wasn't that long of a conversation, but we had a very pointed conversation. And my mom was there too, and she was like, well, you know, how do you rectify this stuff? You know, your daughter is like an atheist and you're a Christian, right? And then you know what my mom said?
Hmm.
She said, well, I don't know, maybe I was indoctrinated too.
Oh. Oh. A little
Small
crack in
thickness.
the armor there. Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, go ahead, mama. Right. But
Yeah.
yeah, but like, you know, I know like a lot of times, like when I was having a conversation with her, and I find this happening a lot of times when I'm speaking to people who are theists, I feel, I think, I believe, you know, they
Mhm.
never talk in like, you know, reality figures that, you know, make sense to you and I, right?
Yeah.
Something that we can both say, like, hey, that cat exists, right?
Right.
But
2 + 2 is 4.
right,
Right.
exactly. No, it's not 5, it's 4. You know,
Yeah. I
you
don't
know,
believe
I
that it's
count too.
5. It
Right, I
is
believe
4.
it's really 4 because I count. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4. Right.
Yeah.
So
Provable. Yeah.
yeah, it's provable. So and that's the thing, like, you know, every time that like we were speaking past each other because I'm talking about empiricism and she's talking about things that she believes, right?
Yeah.
And then trying to like pigeonhole it into something that could be related to reality.
Mhm.
And it makes and it kind of like drove me crazy talking to her because I'm like, okay, can we shift from magical thinking to something that we can both equate to real, right?
Mhm.
Because like right now we're not speaking in reality, we are speaking in, you know, thoughts and fluffiness and clouds, even though I can say the clouds are real, but you know what you want a cloud to be versus what it is, right? That's
Yeah.
my problem.
Yeah.
That's my problem. Yeah.
Well,
I know
I've
what
said
is-
it
go
before.
ahead, Nick.
The
Or-
internet it must make this situation a lot easier. I don't know when, Mike, you went through your deconversion.
No internet.
Right. So it must have
80s,
felt much more alone.
late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And others like Dan Barker who went through that chain.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to shout out to Dan Barker. I work with the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Dan, you are the man. I love you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And the things that he went through and several others. But now that we have this robust internet, you can find other people. I mean, even
Yeah.
even when I started really examining myself, it kind of occurred to me. I said, well, there wouldn't be any black atheists, you know, because the church is so strong in that community.
Mhm.
You know, and it's just. But now we know we can find each other to a degree and
Yeah.
get some support.
Yeah, I'll plug Cynthia's group, the Black Non-Believers, and also plug the interview that Cynthia and I did a couple months ago, where we talked specifically about that. And to your point, Larry, that's exactly it. I've been on different forums on Reddit and Facebook or whatever, And every once in a while, I'll see that from a black person who will say, "Are there any black atheists on this group?" And I'm like, "Oh, I know one. I know a whole group." Go to
there's too many people that look like Mike and me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly. And
agreed.
the sheer numbers, obviously, there's going to be more white people than there are black people as atheists, just because the numbers work out that way. But it doesn't mean they don't exist. And you're right. If you're the one black person in Duluth who is an atheist, and you don't know another single one, if without the internet,
Yeah,
you're going to live and die as the only one and thinking you're the strange one. But in fact,
Right.
no, there's a whole group. Or you're the black or the the Muslim who's trying to decide, and you live in Afghanistan or whatever. All these sort of groups, if you're the minority and you feel like a minority, it's tough without the internet. I don't know how people came to that conclusion easily. I don't know if that's the right word back in the day, because who did you talk to? There's nobody to ask. There's nobody to bounce these questions off. And this group that we're doing here and these discussions is exactly what this is for. When I put this whole thing together originally, it was exactly for this. I want that random guy in the middle of nowhere, or girl, or whatever the person is, to see this and say, "Oh, yeah, you know what? That Mike Gonzalez, he's doing exactly what I'm doing. I'm going through right now." Or Cynthia, I can identify with her because I'm a black woman and I'm an atheist. And I can't tell my mom either. But she did, and she came out, and she's now an atheist. I'm okay. That's what I want. I want you guys to give strength to somebody.
Have you all had conversations online with people that you don't really know, where they're atheist and they're attacking your atheism, or they're trying to convince you you're wrong, and you're trying to point out to why you believe the way you do and how their thinking is flawed? I've many times over the past, since the internet came on, I've had people say, "Well, you're not going to change my mind." I said, "I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm trying to put this out there for anybody else reading this so they can think and ask questions. I'm not trying to change your mind.
Exactly.
It's a conversation. It's not. It's not the result they think I'm going for is not the result I'm going for."
And you know
the more
what?
we do that, the better we're off.
And to your point, Larry, I'm sorry to cut
No,
you
go
off.
ahead, listen to
The other
and
mic.
then Mike.
I just want to say this real quick. I said, and to your point, when you're having those discussions online where other people are looking, the discussion is never for the person that you're engaging with. It's for the people who are actually watching, right?
Exactly.
Because those are the ones who are going to be looking at your argument versus the person who is engaged with you, to see who makes more sense. And often I've known that I've had exchanges, with theists online, including pastors, who will swear up and down that they're right because Jesus, right? And even I had to point out in their own book where there are flaws that would cause one to pause on if what they are saying makes sense or it does not. And even if it does make sense per se, how do you make this applicable to your life personally so that you are able to move forward? I have not spoken to a person who thinks that slavery is a good idea.
I hope not.
Not one. I really haven't. I mean, like, I've seen people, kind of make, arguments on the why, including slavery was a thing that was part of humanity,
Blah,
for
blah, blah.
a long time, blah, 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 blah. And of course, like, my question is always, then why, if God is such a benevolent God, why would he endorse slavery in the Bible? And then they say he never endorsed slavery, and I was like, turn with me, to the book of Leviticus.
But Cynthia, I would propose that you probably have spoken to someone who thinks slavery is a good idea. They just know that saying that is not a good idea.
Okay, facts. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, but regardless, there's still some type of apologetic, right, that's applied to this institution. Even if they say, well, it's not really cool, but I understand why it existed, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's important, even if we're engaging with those people, so that other people can actually see what's happening in our conversations, that they're really seeing like a cogent argument on not only why this institution was bad, and also address why certain, people, gods who call themselves benevolent would even sanction this thing to be okay in the first place. And if they're saying, well, God knew that slavery was a thing, so he actually inspired the authors of the Bible to write about how to regulate it. And I was like, no, this is God, like the creator of the universe. Like, he spoke into existence over the course of 6 days reality.
Right.
Why could he not say, hey guys that I created in my own image, don't enslave people?
Right.
I'm kind of against that. That's
Here's
not
a few
okay.
rules. I'm gonna make hard rules.
Yeah. I mean,
rules,
like, you have like all these, like, I know that we talk about the 10 Commandments, but like, if we're looking at Judaism, they had like over 600 and 13 rules that they had to follow. So why can't one of those 613 rules and says, by the by, slavery sucks, don't do it, I am God?
And the 10 Commandments has like 3 different versions in different books, and they're not the same.
And none of them include don't be slavery. Don't be a slaver. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to today's show. I really hope you enjoyed it. Do me a favor and like and subscribe to the show and tell a friend. That helps us grow and it lets us keep bringing you more voices from the other side of belief. Until we talk again, be kind to one another and remember that reason and compassion go a long way.